Okay, so let's do a quick review on everything that should be ready to go before we start working on the theme. Here I have a development website. It's running on local WP, but it could be running anywhere. I've used the WordPress importer to import some theme unit test data. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and deactivate and delete this right now. That theme unit test data has some posts loaded. It has some pages loaded, some media. If I come to Appearance Themes, I'm using the 2023 theme. You'll see that we have a broken theme down here, and this is because I've created the theme folder, but I haven't actually put anything in it yet. When I look at the front end of the site, we have the 2023 theme. It's got a blog post as a front page, and we have some example content loaded. Inside Pinegrow, I've opened up an index.html. I've saved it to a directory for my project. I've activated the WordPress theme, and you can see that I've got my settings in there for the theme name, theme slug, folder, site URL, and that's it. I've created this theme folder inside the test WordPress site, and you can see here I'm using a variable for the folder name, as well as for the URL. And everything else is the default. I want to walk you through what some of these files are inside the project directory. So if I come over here to the project tab, you'll see we've got a PG backup, export, PG info, CSS, INC folder, as well as a functions.php, index.html, pinegrow.json, and a style.css. In this PG backup, this is where Pinegrow stores all the backup files. So any changes that you make are going to be stored in here in the backup directory. PG export, this has a copy of the files that are going to get exported to your WordPress theme directory. PG info, this has some things that Pinegrow needs just to manage the project. CSS, we have a style.css file, and this should be blank right now. If I right-click on that and do open in editor, you'll see that it has nothing in there. This is where we're going to put our styles for our theme. INC, we have a custom.php, and this is going to be the PHP file that we can use to add custom functions to our theme. Next, we have functions.php. And you're probably used to putting custom functions inside of your functions.php, which isn't a great practice, especially since Pinegrow is going to manage this file. So anything that we add or change in here manually is going to get overwritten the next time that Pinegrow decides that it needs to write this. So what Pinegrow does is in here, it tells it to include this inc custom.php file, which we have right here. So that's why this manages all the smarts for the theme, and then custom.php is where we can add anything additional that we want to use in our theme. Coming down, we have our index.html, and this is blank right now. It just has some header information. Pinegrow.json has some information related to the project. And style.css is our basic style file. You might be thinking that you want to use this to style your theme, but it's probably not a great practice because this holds the header information for the theme itself. So again, Pinegrow likes to keep this as vanilla as possible, and it encourages you to use this style.css file to put all your theme styles inside of. If we really wanted to, we could change the location of this, we could change the name, we could add more styles to it, whatever we want to do. But by default, it creates this CSS directory with a style.css inside of it. If I come up to our theme plugin settings, you'll notice that that version keeps getting incremented each time I do a save to the theme. So if I save settings and export the theme again, you'll notice that version gets upgraded to 0.0.4. So that's just a great helper. What we do want to do is change this to add in your name and your URL, put a description of the theme, and some other things. So I'm just going to do that right now. So I put in my name, I put in my author URI, I've changed the description just a tiny bit, and I'll leave the rest alone. I'll save this, and you'll see, again, when I export that theme, that the version number has been incremented to 0.0.5. Let's close all these files. Now the next thing we want to do is clean up the interface just a little bit before we get started. So I'm going to start by switching over to the tree view, and this is where we can see all the elements that we're working on in the page. And I'm just going to select the body element here so that we can see some things in the panels on the right-hand side. So starting from left to right, we've got the element properties. Here we can add some classes, we can add attributes, and we can change some other things related to the element that we have selected. We're going to keep that. Next up is class styles, and this is only useful if you're using Tailwind. We're not using that, so we'll come over to Window, Show Hide Panels, and remove Class Styles. Next, with the little paintbrush, is the Style panel. This is very useful for creating new classes and for changing CSS properties, as well as managing any of your CSS rules. So we're going to be in here a lot. The next one is the Design panel. It's not active yet, but we will be activating that later. Same thing for interactions. It's not active yet, but we're going to be activating it later, so we'll leave it. I'm going to skip over Actions and come over to our WordPress Actions panel for a minute, because this is where we assign WordPress actions for any elements that are in the tree. And then lastly, we have Actions. This is very easy to confuse with WordPress Actions, and I want to explain it for just a minute. See, Pinegrow can be used as a flat file CMS so that you can create an entire website using just HTML and CSS and manage the whole thing inside of Pinegrow. This Actions panel lets us do some things like defining master pages, defining components, defining partials, and basically making the management of that static website a lot easier. We're not going to be using this in our project, so again, I'm going to come to Window, Show Hide Panels, and deselect my component actions. So now we're left with element properties, style, design panel, interactions, and WordPress theme builder. Any of these panels can be just picked up and dragged and dropped wherever you want them. So you can rearrange your workspace however you want to make it most comfortable for you. The next thing that we're going to be in a lot is the code editor. So if I come over to the project tab, I can right click on any of these files and say open in code editor, and you'll see that it opens up here in the bottom. I can click this little icon if I want to toggle the floating panel. I'll close that up again, and you'll see it dock back to the bottom again. I can resize this however I want, or I can click this little code editor button to close it or open it. We have two ways to insert elements. One is by using the library panel. This is the way that you inserted elements in Pinegrow for a very long time. I tend to not use this anymore because it takes up a lot of screen real estate, and instead I use the insert button, which brings up basically the same thing as the library panel, only it easily hides. So the way I work is I'll generally keep my tree view up when I'm working in a page, or if I need to switch between pages, I'll use my project tab. I more or less ignore the library panel, and I do all my inserts right from here. We've got buttons to increase or decrease the zoom inside of your preview window. We've got our undo and redo buttons. This guy here is going to toggle some visual helpers. So if you notice as we're working, you'll see outlines of different elements on the screen. If you don't want them, you can just click that to make them go away. Or if you want to customize it, you can click the little down chevron arrow and customize what you do or don't want to see. This hand toggles between test clicks and selections. So when this is green, that means that when I click things on the page, it's going to interact with them as if we were using web browser. When it's gray, it means when I click something on the page, it's going to select it in the tree view. We can turn on or off JavaScript on the page. I generally leave that on. This refreshes the page view. You rarely have to do that. This next one previews the page in a browser. You can just click on that and open in a browser. And lastly, we have Focus On, which lets us pick an element and just focus on it. And we won't be able to see anything else here in the tree view. It's very handy when you have a very, very busy page that you're working on and you just want to focus on a little bit of it at a time. There's a lot more that you can do with the interface. You can move these entire panels around, do whatever you want. You can use things like browser sync. You can integrate with VS Code. I'm not going to get into all of that right now. If anything comes up as we're going through the tutorials, then I'll explain it. Now let's take a look at the final project so that you can see where we're going. So we'll do File, and I'll say Open Project in New Window. I'll navigate to the course files folder that we downloaded, and I'll open the no code theme final folder. And I say select folder, Pinegrow opens up the project for us. It should have the index.html file open. And if you come over here to the project tab, you'll see that we've got a lot more files in there. So we've got a template for our 404 page, an employee archive template, a template for blocks, a template for a customizer, which looks blank, page.html, is just our page template. We'll have a parts template, single employees, single.html, a style demo, utilities folder, and some other stuff. You don't actually need anything for this, but I just wanted to show you what some of these files look like and what's going to be there after we build our project. For now, let's close this. The last thing that we want to do is bring over some of the demo data so that we can get this project started. So over here on the left-hand side, I have the no-code theme starter folder that you downloaded from the course files. And on the right-hand side, I have our project directory, the no-code theme demo folder. What we want to do is copy the assets folder, CSS folder, and screenshot.png file over to our no-code theme demo folder. You might get a warning about replacing a file, and that's okay. Go ahead and do that. All it's doing is replacing the empty style.css file with one that actually has some useful information in there. Now, when we come back into Pinegrow, we can go over to our project tab, right-click on the project name and reload project, and you'll see that it's brought in our assets with our images, our CSS folder that has a style.css, an editor.css, and a block.css. And we also have a screenshot.png file. And now we have everything in place and we're ready to get started on our project.